Guys, did you ever dream of exploring the deep sea in a submarine as a kid? Yeah, me neither. But there's a game that drops you straight into that world, and somehow it manages to make it terrifying. Today, we're diving into a review, you see what I did there, from
Hello
someone
there.
who couldn't even finish Subnautica until their adulthood because of how intense it gets. Let's see what makes this underwater adventure so haunting. Join me. Alright, for some reason we're doing another horror game. Now, I say that loosely because I know Subnautica is not intended to be a horror game, but it definitely dabbles in it. But anyway, today we have a review coming in from Caesar EMC 7. 4 people found this review helpful. Recommended 0 hours in the last 2 weeks, 122.9 hours on record. Posted July 18th at 4:50 a.m. He then wrote, "Finally finished it. Bought literally a week after it launched in 2018. I remember the consistent updates that added more and more things to do to the game. I used to be a kid, I think we all did, and I was so scared to play it. I remember that it didn't have an ending yet. Now I'm a young adult in college, finally had the moment to play it in its complete glory. I did everything I could, the crater, scanned every little thing, and visited every single biome. Got all the achievements, and all I can say is that it is an amazing game. So satisfying to play the game and progress. Even if it's still a little scary, I will always remember the experience and carry it with me, like all the other story games I've played before. I can only say thank you to the developers and everyone involved in the game, and now I'll try to save some money to see if I can buy Below Zero and Subnautica 2 to keep supporting the story and experience it just like I was when I was still a kid. 10 out of 10. Okay, so let's talk about the backstory or the premise of Subnautica. You play as a simple maintenance worker aboard the massive spaceship called the Aurora. And out of nowhere, the ship is struck by a mysterious energy pulse and crash lands you on an uncharted entity, water-covered alien world known as Planet 4546b. You are the lone survivor. Great movie, by the way. Your obvious goal, don't drown. And, well, don't starve. You start by catching alien fish and scavenging scrap metal to craft basic survival gear. But eventually you are building a massive underwater habitats and piloting deep sea submarines. Ultimately, the mission is to cure the infection, shut down the automated defense system that shot you out of the sky, and build a rocket to escape. It's a beautiful, terrifying masterpiece of survival game. Alright, so then let's start dissecting this, and we're going to bring up my first point number 1. He starts his review by mentioning that he bought the game back in 2018, which honestly feels like it was just yesterday. The fact that that's almost 10 years ago is absolutely insane. Anyway, even though it's been 8 years, he also points out how the game consistently received updates over the years. Now, as someone who hasn't played Subnautica yet, it's great to see a reviewer highlight the developer's ongoing support, as some games they get released and they get forgotten about. But that kind of dedication really helps to keep the games alive. Of course, I just hope these updates weren't packed with microtransactions, because let's be real, that's one infection. You see what I did there, right? I could do this all day.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
But no, that's one infection we could all do without. Alright, so now this is going to get me to point number 2. The reviewer mentions that he bought the game as a kid, but couldn't really play it back then as it seemed very scary. Honestly, I can relate. Who hasn't played a game that they weren't ready for? I know I definitely played The Suffering and The Suffering Ties That Bind way too young. And well, that probably explains those nightmares.
Jesus Christ.
Kidding, of course, but from what I can see, the team behind Subnautica did an amazing job, as it looks as inviting as Minecraft, but truly delivers a unique survival horror experience. Now, as a parent and my kids are both, well, I'll just say they're both under the age of 10, and if they wanted to play this game, I think I would be okay with it, again, from what I've seen so far. It's visually approachable, and from what I can see, again, it's just cartoon violence. And that is just enough suspense to keep it exciting. How about you? Would you guys let your kids play Subnautica? Let me know in the comments below. Okay, so that gets me to point number 3. The reviewer actually did everything in the game. Got all the achievements, visited all the biomes, and, well, he completed the game. As someone who often struggled and still struggles to stay on task. Hey, wait a minute. Is that a squirrel over there? Anyway, I find it really impressive. It says a lot about how compelling Subnautica is. If he can keep the players engaged all the way through, that is phenomenal. Now, of course, this could just be one person's experience. However, I will say this game was rated overwhelmingly positive. So that's why I'm going to give this reviewer credit or the benefit of the doubt. And to add to that, they wrote a detailed review and provide solid context to back up his claims. Alright, so this then brings me to point number 4. The reviewer actually took the time to thank the developers to make the game. Honestly, this stood out to me. So big studios like Activision, Treyarch, Infinity Ward, and Sledgehammer could really take a frickin' page from Untold Entertainment's book. If it wasn't obvious, I'm a former Call of Duty fan. But anyway, back to Subnautica. What really drew me to this review wasn't the run-on sentences. Sorry, broski, joke though. Or even its length.
That's quite big. Impressive.
It's seeing a player or critique genuinely thank the developers. That is a rarity or rare thing to see these days, and honestly, it was very refreshing. So kudos to you, Caesar. Okay, so this brings me to point number 5. So I kind of already talked about this in point number 3, but the reviewer brings up retention again.
What do you mean by that?
And what I mean by that is, he closes out his review by saying he plans to save up for the expansions as well as Subnautica 2. Again, this is incredibly refreshing to see a reviewer mention this in their review. He finishes by saying how awesome of a game this was and that he's absolutely going to play the next expansion and the sequel. I can count on one hand how many times I have seen that in a review. Well, at least in a review with actual constructive criticism. So, as I said before, kudos to you, Caesar. Job well done and a great review. Alright, so wrapping up, as I've probably mentioned 4 times by now if you didn't know, I haven't actually played Subnautica myself, but this reviewer made a great case for why it's special for him, especially since he brought it back to a sense of nostalgia as buying it as a kid and kind of playing it but finishing it while he was an adult. I can definitely relate. There are plenty of games that I have great fond memories of that I still consider classics, even if others may not. Maybe even hood classics, if you will. But based on everything we've discussed about Subnautica, it's clear there's plenty of room for a sequel, and Unknown Worlds Entertainment has delivered on that. With the early release of Subnautica 2 earlier this year, I can only imagine I will be covering a positive review from that game in the near future. Okay, so I think I've reached a point in my series where I wanted to start building a list of games that I actually want to try out for myself, and I'm going to call this segment Add to the List, and Subnautica is officially on that list. As I mentioned, I'm exploring games I've never played before and relying on your reviews and first impressions to figure out if the game is worth checking out. Would Subnautica make your list? Let me know in the comments below. With that, this brings me to the end of my video. I wanted to thank you all for watching and hope you all have a great day.